Welcome in, folks. Welcome in to the after show. It's the show after the show. That's why we call it the after show. See what we did there. We're very creative. The show that cannot be stopped no matter what. You know, we had some issues with Facebook yesterday. They almost shut the entire company down. It's hard. 800 radio stations. It's hard to imagine, but it literally did almost happen yesterday. for reasons I can't even. Again, it was actually because of yesterday's after show. Yep. So anyway, I can talk more about that coming up in moments on News Radio 1300 and 106.9 FM. But first, we have breaking news. It's actually happening right now. The governor
on this, I characterize.
Let's see if we can get. Actually, can we get some of this? Maybe we can get some of this audio up for you. See if we can actually hear what is happening. The governor has just. This is really interesting. I kind of had a feeling that this is where we were headed. The governor has just announced that she is going to tie lessening restrictions to rates of folks getting the jab, the Fauci ouchie, which she calls vaccination rates. And she's got a whole scale, and there's a whole looking at the image that goes along with it. Hopefully we'll be able to put some of this on for you so you can see this. But different percentages would allow different restrictions to be lifted at different times. That's the latest. She had a press conference scheduled at 9:30 today. And quite frankly, we didn't cover it live on the air because we stopped covering anything that she did when it stopped becoming really newsworthy. And as you can imagine, it's today was a doozy. Here's some of it. It's still, I think, still ongoing now. Let's see if we can get you listed to some of this here. Questions being
asked. Governor, I was typing at the time for an email. I have a question in terms of, okay, say we don't get to 65 or 70%. What if we don't get there? What happens to schools, to sports, to businesses? And also, are we the first state to tie vaccines to reopening?
I don't think that we're the first state to tie vaccines to some re-engagement. This, I think we may be one of the first that really has put together a plan of nature, and we're proud of this work. We think that it really is the kind of goal and hope that we need. And it's an opportunity for us to all join arms and to make sure that we get to this goal. Now, it is dependent on people, though, of course, just like everything the last 15 months. It's dependent on Michiganders availing themselves of these incredibly important vaccines. It's incumbent on employers to support their workforce to go and make sure that they are vaccinated. It is incumbent on every one of us to take this seriously and to ask the questions if we still have questions about vaccines. There's nothing wrong with having questions. We just want to make sure that you've got the opportunity to get your questions answered so that you can protect yourself and your community. 70% is an operational goal. We know that we're going to work to vaccinate everyone that we can. The more people that get vaccinated, the better. The more likely we can put this virus behind us and forestall the possibility of variants. And so we're going to continue to work. We know that Pfizer has applied for authorization to inoculate teens between 12 and 15. Ugh. When younger kids become, we'll continue to push our energy into our efforts to make sure that they get vaccinated as well, and that ultimately our work will not be done when we hit one of these goals, but we can enjoy a lot of things that we've all been craving when we do. All right, thank you, everybody.
All right, she's just wrapping it up now.
Get back to normal. Bye.
Now, by the way, she'll be here in Grand Rapids today for her second shot. I'm trying to get some of these together. We just had a news report that reported it, and hopefully we'll be able to give you the full details of this report here. But what's really, I think, most alarming about this latest report here, is that she's holding folks hostage now, seemingly, to go get a medical procedure done that some may not want or feel the need to get done. You want to go back to normal. You want to have these freedoms. You've got to take the shot. I don't know. I honestly, I just don't. I just think that's not a good idea. It's very poor policy. If this thing was such a big deal, you wouldn't have to sell this. There's billions being spent on people going out to get people to go out. And matter of fact, I talked about this just briefly yesterday on the after show, but there was an organization that came to me and said, "Will you take this? If you take the shot and talk about it on the air, encourage other people else to do it, we're going to pay you to do it." Now, normally they do pay us to do things, right? In radio. Generally, when I endorse a product, it's a product or a service or a company that I have used. I don't just endorse things that I don't and haven't used. So I have to really feel good about it, number one. Number two, I've made it very clear on this program, regardless of whether I choose to get the jab or not. I've made it very clear, and I will, that it's a personal choice. People shouldn't have to be manipulated. Your arm shouldn't have to be twisted to do this. You should feel like you want to do it. To protect yourself, to protect your family, to protect whoever. At this point, though, what we know about this virus, what we understand about it, is that you've got a 99 point something, very high rate of survival unless you have very serious issues or you're older, 80s, etc. 99%. So an experimental therapeutic, genetic therapy, they've got the emergency use authorization from the FDA to use. It has not been completely and fully authorized. They're now saying that 16-year-olds could do it. And I thought, why kids? And Joe Rogan was thrown underneath the bus the other day for saying, you're 21. Why run out and do it? I don't know. Maybe I would caution against that. Particularly, I would have questioned about it, specifically if you are healthy, if you're a healthy individual. I'm just really concerned by this. I really am. Let me give you some of the statistics or some of the details of the program here. 2 weeks after 4.5 million Michiganders have received their first vaccine dose, 55% of the eligible population, she says, the state will lift requirements that employers mandate employees work remotely where feasible. I don't think people really care about that. But some of these other things people will get, I think, a little bit more involved in. 2 weeks after 4.9 million Michiganders have received their first dose, 60% of the population, the state will increase indoor capacity for sporting events, conference centers, banquet halls, and other similar facilities to 25%. The state will also increase capacity limits at gyms to 50% and lift curfews on restaurants and bars. I didn't even know we still had curfews on restaurants and bars. That's how ridiculous this is. Nobody's paying attention. Meanwhile, there's no need for this, folks. The state of Florida, the state of Texas, South Dakota, many of them are completely free and open, and nobody's being forced to do anything medically. Nobody's forced to be doing anything, and they're not, and they continue to see decreases in rates continue over and over. Nobody wants to be able to, nobody can explain that. This just really concerns me because I see full and further division that will occur because people will say, well, I want to have my wedding outside, but Uncle Joe won't get the jab, so I can't have my wedding wherever or whatever. I can't plan, I can't schedule it, because if only Uncle Joe and the rest of these idiots would go along and just get the jab, then we could just get back to normal. That's not how this works. Florida's back to normal. Texas is back to normal. These states are continuing to be back to normal. But we're now being coerced. This is blackmail. We're being blackmailed into this. 2 weeks after 5.3 Michiganders have received their first dose, 65% of the eligible population, the state will lift all indoor capacity restrictions and relax limits on social gatherings. But 65% have to be dosed first, at least their first. 2 weeks after 5.7 million have received their first dose, the state will rescind the health department's face mask and gathering order and stop issuing similar rules unless unanticipated circumstances arise, they say. That means if, in fact, we're able to get the numbers to go back up in some way because we're testing more people, because that's what they're doing. They can get those numbers to go back up, then we can crank down on you again. People, this is really concerning to me. And I just encourage you to make those phone calls, not just to state, again, this is happening, this plan is happening without legislators' approvals. But make those calls to the legislators, but also make them, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, who you are. Democrats used to say, my body, my choice. I would think that you would have a similar understanding when it comes to this situation as well. We are going to demonize people that can't and haven't, for whatever reason, gotten the jab. Because we're going to say we could just be open right now, but you people, you idiots won't go along with this. Make sure you share this, by the way. If you're watching right now on Facebook or Twitter, make sure you click share on this so that folks can actually see what is happening. So we can have these conversations. Unfortunately, you're just not allowed to question any of this anymore. Our entire Facebook page was dropped. Well, not completely. I mean, we still have it. You just won't see much, if anything, on it in the coming days. It really is something. And you got people, I'm looking over Twitter right now, saying, thanks for encouraging the spread of disease through our homes and workplaces. Folks, look at Florida. I mean, follow the science, follow the data. Look at Texas. Are you telling me science and data works differently up north than it does down in Texas and Florida? Well, you don't have to go south. Go to South Dakota. You don't have to go that far. Go across the lake to Wisconsin, where the Supreme Court lifted their mask mandates because they said they were unconstitutional. So now we're being blackmailed. Teresa says, so I just recovered from COVID. It wasn't fun, but it was a really bad cold. She says she just got over it. And then the question, and I've heard a lot of people ask this, so if you just recovered from it or you have it and you have the antibodies, you're not accounting for any of that in any of these opening plans. Do those people have to go out and get it too? My mother-in-law is a nurse. I won't say where, but she has had COVID, and I mean, she still doesn't have her taste or sense or a touch or I'm sorry, taste or smell. She still hasn't recovered from that fully. And the question is you want to get the jab? And she's like, I just, because I still have issues, I don't know, and I don't think so. And the other folks that she's talked to, medical professionals. Again, this is a very easy, reasonable, and simple solution here. We have a product. We have a solution. It's a jab. It's the Fauci ouchie. If the product is so good, and of course, if the need for it is so good, why do we have to force people to go out and consume the product? I'm sorry, but if you are in the desert and you are dying of thirst, if a jug of water shows up, you are going to guzzle it. You're not going to have to be told to do it. Shouldn't that be the way this situation is? I'm tired of the governor and I'm tired of the government trying to make decisions for us on a daily basis when it comes to everything in our lives. Get out of the way. We don't need you to do that. We're perfectly capable. Lisa makes a great point. Don't ask me if I've had my jab. I won't ask if you've had your pap smear or colonoscopy. This is out of control. Oh, boy, that's next, Lisa. Don't give them any ideas. Don't give them any ideas. The latest from the governor again, and I'll go through these so you can understand. This is what we have. She has tied loosening restrictions to the number and the percentage of folks vaccinated. The percentage of folks who have gotten the jab. 70% of folks, 2 weeks after 70% of folks have gotten the jab, she says that she will rescind the health department. Now, the state will rescind the health departments. Now, who made that decision? Who was it? Her? Was it the director of the department? Was there science involved? Was there a doctor consulted? We don't have any of these answers. 2 weeks after, the state will rescind the health department's face mask and gathering order and stop issuing similar rules. So we'll be completely open. Is that how I'm supposed to understand this? 2 weeks after 70% get the jab. Let me find out. Hey, Tony, do you know? Can you tell me where are we now? I'm looking at these benchmarks, but do you know how many? Like, what percentage are we at currently? Do you know? Okay. Thank you. So the Tony in the newsroom just said, because I'm trying to get the actual number, where are we at? He said he doesn't have the current accurate number of where we are just now, but the governor said in the press conference that she expects to hit the 55% number, which is 4.5 million Michiganders receiving their first dose by next week. So by next week, that's where then we'd have to wait 2 more weeks. Is that what I understand? Let me ask real quick. So we'll hit that number by next week, and then there's another 2 weeks that has to clear in order to lift that first. Okay, so the benchmark is next week, and then another 2 weeks would be. Okay, thank you. So if we hit the benchmark next week, we got 2 weeks, and then she will lift requirements that employers mandate employees work remotely where feasible, which is ridiculous that people can't go to work right now. I don't even know if that's I don't know if anybody's really following that. 2 weeks after we hit 4.9 million, which would be 60%, she says that she will lift the state increase indoor and increase the indoor capacity for sporting events, conference centers, banquet halls, and other facilities. So weddings and things like that people have been wondering about and they want to go do. The state will also increase capacity limits at gyms 50% and lift curfews on restaurants and bars. So again, these folks, your employer is going to want to probably push you to get the dose in the first phase here. In the second one, restaurants and other places will probably put pressure on you because understandably they want to get back to business, and they should be. I mean, look at Florida. They're able to do it. Texas is able to do it. Why all of a sudden a problem here? 2 weeks after 65%, that would be 5.3 million Michiganders have had the first dose. They will lift all indoor capacity restrictions and lift and relax limits on social gatherings. And then finally, the 70%, which is 2 weeks after 5.7 million have got their first dose, the state will rescind the health department's face mass gathering indoors, gathering order, and stop issuing similar rules. I don't know where you stand on this, whether or not you want to get this or not. Does what she said change where you're at? Does it encourage you to go out and do this, or does it just upset you and tick you off even more? Mary says, I have a blood clotting disorder. I'm not injecting that crap into my body. And I don't, you know what? If you have a medical issue, again, I'm going to say this, and I said it yesterday, I still think it's very reasonable. Consult your doctor, talk to your physician, talk to your healthcare providers, whoever that might be. I don't think that blackmail by the state of Michigan or this governor is the way to get this done. In fact, I do think they need to say, you know what, if you, I think they do need to say things that encourage people to take these steps, what they've been doing with the CDC lately. And I don't know, because I don't know. I know she's laid out this plan, but it completely conflicts with what the CDC said the other day, which is if you're outside in groups of people, you still have to wear masks. Well, how is this following any science or data of the CDC regular? I mean, where do they come up with these guidelines? Folks, I know I'm just as fed up with this as you are. Make sure you click share on this. And of course, look, it's all about control. Every bit of this is about controlling us. And if they can do it with this, they can do it with anything. I mean, it's a 99% survival. I know we lost 500,000 people, but I mean, people have questions about those numbers. I'm not going to get into all that. What I will say is that, yes, we lost people. I know people who got very sick. My birth mom, very sick. She was in the hospital. Thank God. Down in Florida, they gave her remdesivir. They gave her the plasma. And, she also had Jesus. I'm telling you, she did 11 days in the hospital. She made it out. Jessica, great point. Great question. Who's going to pay for the health issues if we get the jab? Who's taking liability? I asked this yesterday. No, there is no liability. The company that makes it isn't on the hook. The governor herself certainly isn't on the hook. If you were asked to sign a contract like this for anything, if you were asked to sign a contract and be thrown out in a court of law, if you were asked to sign a confession, it would be thrown out because you were doing so under duress. You would be being forced to do it. Yet this is how this governor chooses to govern. Folks, there's so much more. There's so much more that didn't have a chance to get to today, and honestly, I've got to let this settle in a little bit more. And I don't really want to talk about anything else. This is something that I just am very concerned about, and I'm just disappointed. I'm really disappointed that this is how this governor chooses to govern. But every step of the way, she's done this stuff, and quite frankly, this is the latest. I'm going to put everything else on hold. I will make sure that we continue these conversations. Though, again, the after show, I've got a big announcement coming tomorrow about the after show that has been in the works. We finally figured out how to make it happen. The solution that we were looking for. People have been asking us, "Can you do this? Can you do this?" And I said, "Okay, let's figure out. Let's see how I can get into this. Can I make this work?" Well, I was able to finally figure it out and make it work because people were asking for it. Well, isn't that how things work? I mean, entrepreneurs understand this. You got a problem, you know how to solve it, or you have an idea how to solve it. You go out there and you get it done. People are demanding it, and then they'll pay for it. And here in this situation, this is a solution in search of a problem. I mean, this is the epitome of what's wrong with government. We got to have a return to common sense instead of the nonsense we're dealing with these days. I don't know how long this stays up on Facebook, but it's over on Facebook, it's on Twitter, and it is on YouTube. Please make sure you go like my Facebook page if you haven't already. And go stream this, share this thing because it's up now, as I said. And as the podcast, if you're listening on the podcast, the iHeartRadio app, as the podcast is up, make sure that you go and you share the podcast as well. Big announcement tomorrow. I can't wait to make that announcement. Because we have to build the lifeboats, folks. What we saw yesterday with Facebook, it doesn't surprise me. It just was a matter of time, but we have to build the lifeboats, and I'm in the process of doing that. So please make sure you text me. This is another easy way to stay in touch with me. I'm going to put that number up on the screen here in just a second. But make sure you text me because that way we can talk back and forth. I while I'm on the air, and sometimes I check it throughout the day, but that number is 616-201-3353. 616-201-3353. And if you text me that number, you'll be saved in my phone. You can save me in your phone, and we can continue our conversation no matter what Facebook or Twitter or anybody else has to say about it. Also, go get my good newsletter. Go to justinbarclay.com/good news. That's justinbarclay.com/good news. That way we can stay in touch as well when I have big things that are coming down that you might want to know about, that you might want to hear about. justinbarclay.com/good news. And that's BARCLAY. And you, by the way, if you're listening to this on the podcast, we'll put it in the show notes so you can get to it there as well. But we've got to build the life raft, folks, because we've got to be able to continue to have these conversations because some people just don't want us to. My good newsletter is justinbarclay.com/good news. All right. Another after show on the books and the latest breaking news. The governor, again, tying restrictions and the lifting of those restrictions to rates of folks who have gotten the Fauci ouchie. I'm going to talk more about this tomorrow morning on the air as we're live at 9:06. It's a free-for-all Friday, so I don't expect to hear from you heavily. I want to make sure that your voice is represented because it doesn't seem to be that way these days. That's it. Back tomorrow morning, like I said, God willing. In the meantime, make it a great day. God bless.